Hello, and thank you for joining us here today on the Millionaire's Lure. Happy to have you with us. And on today's show, we've got Garik Tate, who is an AI futurist, investor and AI strategy consultant. A great conversation that we have. We're at the intersection of AI, blockchain, IQ, and EQ for that matter. Here's my conversation with Garik Tate. Garik, thanks so much for joining us here today. Happy to have you here reporting in from Cebu, right? We were just talking offline. That's the second largest city in the Philippines. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
The second largest city in the Philippines, which is what size is that? We know Manila is a huge city. What's the size of Cebu?
Depending on how you measure the metropolitan area, it's definitely more than 1 million folks. I think it's in the below 5 million though. It's around that number.
Okay, so a range, and I mean originally stateside. I think you were saying the Seattle area. Uh,
Uh, yep. Grew up actually in Woodby Island.
the
So much.
rainy times there, and then I assume there's a nice rainy season in the Philippines as well, right?
I describe the area I grew up as 100 miles from where they filmed Twilight, and Twilight set there because vampires can chill there because it's literally never sunny. It's always raining all the time. So that forms a picture. Yeah, there's a dry season and a rainy season here in the Philippines. But right now it's been good weather so far.
That's good stuff. Okay, and you've been there roughly 10 years or so. Like how long? How long you been over that side of the
Yeah.
world?
Yeah, the long story short, I moved out here when I was 18 years old. We had started a family business with my brother and with my father, a publishing company, and that's still running. That business is still doing quite well. But been here, yeah, about 10 years now.
10 years and watching it evolve and watching business evolve as well, right? I think that's going to inform part of our conversation here today, most specifically the way you're delving into AI, looking at AI, and obviously we're doing a lot of thinking on that end of things as well. What are you seeing from there? What's your, sort of from the 1,000 mile view, what do things look like from your perspective these days?
You're speaking of the broader industry, not so much Philippines in particular, right?
Yes, AI just is it's the topic du jour, and I think it's here to stay. So yeah, if we're talking of that and what the future holds for AI, what are we talking of?
So when we're talking about AI, I think that the way it needs to be conceptualized is with a historic example. So the way that I talk to my clients about this is that what's going on with AI right now is similar to the advent of electricity at the turn of the 1900s. So when electricity was first broadly proliferated through society, we started being able to add it to just about anything to add greater work. In other words, it was a way of like democratizing or making work slash power slash force significantly cheaper. So you could convert a hammer to a jackhammer. You can convert a saw to a power saw, so on and so forth. And now we're doing the same thing, but we're doing it with intelligence. So now pretty much any part of our lives that in which there's a natural pattern of intelligence, we can now add these AIs into, which is has both utopic and dystopic potentialities. I think we're going to be probably right down the middle, but that is really the way to conceptualize what we're going through. I think that every technology goes through a hype cycle. I think that most business owners, especially in the area of tech, remember not too long ago just going through the hype cycle of blockchain and how things kind of rose and fall. I think we're in a different situation with AI, seeing these big players, the Googles and Microsofts going all in, because I think that they are rightfully seeing that this technology, while it will go through more booms and busts, like it's not going to be at this level of hype forever, it is really here to stay, and it's making real impact in people's real lives like today. So it's here to stay for sure.
And it's interesting you equate it to just to turn a corner here to blockchain. How are you seeing it applied to blockchain? You're not suggesting blockchain's been it is somehow not going to be used on a go forward, are you?
No, I wouldn't say that. Actually, I was just on another podcast where we were talking a lot about the problems that AI posit, how it's going to um, decrease the marginal cost of things like spam and things that are really degrading to our civilization. how it's going to decrease the cost of doing that even more than it is already. And I think that the solutions to that actually, funnily enough, are a lot of blockchain technologies. And so I think that it's a really good timing that both technologies are kind of hitting the maturity levels they are at the time that they are, because I think that they're, at least in some parts of our civilization, like living in a post-truth world, et cetera, it's quite handy to have a more mature technology with blockchain. So I think it has a lot of applications in the future. I'm talking more about like the hype cycle and all the investments that were going into it on things that maybe they shouldn't have.
It's interesting. You just said post-truth, another whole podcast into itself.
Whole podcast, yes.
Yeah, whole podcast there as well. But I want to just take another moment on blockchain. Which platforms and networks do you think it's Bitcoin? Do you think it's Ethereum? Where will things be built?
Yeah, funny enough, my view on this has been pretty Bitcoin maximalist, not so much in philosophy. I think that when it comes to Bitcoin maximalist, there's definitely a logarithmic curve where if you are, just a few steps over the right, you get pretty insane pretty fast. But I would say in broad strokes, there's a lot of wisdom to it. I believe in what Balaji Srivatsan says when he says that Bitcoin maximalism is the probably the most underground philosophy that's going to change the world. Or I'm misquoting him, but it's something to that effect, where it's a little bit underneath people's radar, but it's really having, going to have big ripple effects. And so I would put myself a bit in that camp, while not nearly as zealous as others.
As certain people can be. Describing though how that is, the underlying shift, if we can call it that, but the underlying way that perhaps we'll be doing things as a consequence. Can you speak to what that possibly looks like?
Talking about AI and blockchain together, or just talking about AI?
Let's start with the first, with blockchain and AI together, and then we'll move to just AI generally.
Well, I think blockchain adds a really important piece of the puzzle when it comes to AI, which is AI's ability to emulate reality. So the phrase that I think unlocks this is that neural nets are to biology what math is to physics. So you can describe and simulate physics with mathematics, and you can also describe and simulate biology with AI, because they're using similar Darwinian mechanics. And so because of that, all of a sudden, a lot of things before were quite biological, quite baked into reality, that were hard to fake, are now much easier to simulate, which is a fancy way of saying to fake or to lie about. And so I think that the blockchain technology provides a pretty strong backdrop where it is impossible to fake, at least on a code level. And so I think what's going to emerge is that individual actors will not be able to hide their reputations, and we'll be able to track actors more effectively across platforms, and therefore be able to better tell the good actors from the bad, without them being able to fake their identification. So I think that has a lot of benefits in the society we're heading into. I think that this might be the reason why Sam Altman is starting WorldCoin, which I believe it's not something I've looked into. It's not something I wouldn't I can say I endorse, because I don't know enough about it. But I think it's actually a coin doing exactly what we're talking about, where it's putting your identity on the blockchain.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that. Again, don't know a great deal about it, but from what you're saying, yes, WorldCoin is one such attempt to have verifiable individuals or players, right? So that we can go back and see, are they a good actor or a bad actor? But certainly everything that they're doing can be traced. And that's, again, we can talk another whole podcast on that as well, right? The practicalities of that, and whether it's something that's desirable or not. But that's certainly, yes, one thing that WorldCoin is attempting to do, Sam Altman and the group working with that, and I think others as well. So it's going to be interesting to see as this evolves, as you say, as this matures, as we begin to see the new way of doing things, because the technology is empowering us to do just that. And I like your analogy to electricity with the use of AI. to shift sort of more generally, when we're talking of how it's going to evolve in other areas, can you give some thoughts or some predictions there? So again, we just talked, how it will intersect with blockchain and some of the advantages, I think, as you identified of doing that. How else generally will AI be used, and how will it empower other areas? So in addition to blockchain, again, I know I'm asking for very broad predictions here, but that's part of what we're doing here, right? We're trying to predict what things are going to look like in the future.
Yeah, I mean, it's August 2023. We'll see how it all plays out. So let's plant some flags. So I think that one conversation that a lot of people are thinking about is job security and how this will impact different industries. And so there's a few nuances I want to throw into that conversation. One thing that I think is lacking from that conversation in many regards is the fact that not only will new jobs be created, we have no idea what these new jobs are even going to be like, and that kind of feels like where the conversation stalls out for me when I hear even very intelligent people having to reduce themselves to sound bites. That's where it goes. Jobs will be eliminated, but new jobs will be created. Some factors that I think also get added into this beyond that stalemate is that a lot of jobs we will find that the demand increases with the supply. There's a lot of things that civilization produces where we would love 10 times more of it if we could. So like one fantastic example is developers. Hiring developers as a tech company is extremely hard. That's why my company specializes in hiring developers as our core skill set, because it is quite challenging. And so if now developers became 10 times more effective or it became 10 times easier to train a developer using these tools, or some mixture of the two, we would love to have 100 times more code. We would just love that. So the supply demand curve is constrained currently more on the supply side. And there is a lot of historical examples of this. My favorite is the ATM machine. When bank tellers were doing their job pre ATM, 80% of their time was spent pushing numbers. And when the ATM came out, you would quite reasonably think, well, we need only 20% of the bank tellers, because by golly, like 80% of their time just went away. But the bank teller profession, we actually want to hire more bank tellers after the ATM. And the reason is that the banks could open up 10 times more stores, or 5 times more stores, however you do the math. And that they actually realized they wanted more people, not less. And so I think there's going to be a lot of industries where people are surprised that it actually grows in its employment metrics rather than decrease. I believe that developers will increase. I believe that customer support jobs will probably decrease. We probably don't need 10 times more customer support than we're already getting. I'm talking about like IT customer support and things. I don't know about artists, and that's one thing I'm not as sure about. If we get 10 times more art or 100 times more art, will we value artists as much? But I think that it's not going to be just a matter of like an AI took my job. It's much more about the actors using the technology become 10 times or 100 times more productive. And so all of a sudden it's like, do we need 10 times more artists to produce the same amount? That becomes a lot more of the conversation.
Yeah, and as you see that conversation, well, it relates as well to developers, right? Those developers become ostensibly 10 times more powerful, right? Are they writing 10%? Is the code order of magnitude that much greater? Do we need fewer people? My understanding is it's going to
actually, there's a fun metric on that. Is it? I believe I might not get these metrics exactly right, but if I remember correctly, the Copilot program, which GitHub has released for developers paying for it, helps them write code with AI. And I believe that 50% of all code in the last few months has been written by the 10% of developers using it. So the developers have become, depending on how you want to do the math, because of course there's already an 80-20 curve in there, but have become 5 times more productive, by on some back of napkin math. So it really is on that level, and it's already playing out.
Yeah, we're already seeing it. Is anyone done any analysis if the code is much better? Do we have that? Do we have that insight?
I'm absolutely sure it has. From what I don't think that I don't have a number to quote at you. I believe that the code is similar quality, but I don't have some specific metrics that I can throw at you to back that up.
I've heard people describing that it empowers sort of a more junior developer to become, much more skilled. I think that would make some sense. And so, these really elite developers are finding that the gap between them and perhaps the next level of developer has been diminished as a consequence. Would you agree with that statement?
I don't think I would. I think there's a really interesting nuance. This actually segues in the second nuance I want to throw in, which is that unlike before with the advent of electricity, where different actors could be amplified. So like in the factory assembly line revolution, you didn't need to know how to assemble an entire car in order to benefit from the factories producing 100 times more cars. You wouldn't necessarily benefit from that. But in a lot of these technologies, in fact, the people who are the best at their jobs are in many ways able to do the hard part of the job, which is to articulate what they're looking for. They can, the best experts in the field are knowing what they're looking for, and then if they can articulate it well, then they create the best output. So the art that an artist can create or a professional photographer can create with Midjourney is better than anything I'm going to get, except out of dumb luck. And so I think that there is going to be still a competitive advantage of the experts in the fields already. But this idea, because I've also heard of this, of the people benefiting the most are junior folks, like they're catching up the most. I've heard of this. I haven't found any metrics by which I would fully buy it, but it's really interesting. So I think there's going to be kind of a back and forth on that for a while longer.
Yeah, I think you're quite right that way, and it makes it very clear that it's important to become skilled at the use of these AIs. I think that's the one thing that anybody with an ounce of intelligence is going to realize. Okay, I've got to learn how to use this. I got to learn how to be up on this. So how do we do that? What are some of the ways that you mentioned? GitHub and Copilot. What are some of the ways that someone listening here may say, okay, I need to make sure I keep up. What are some of the things I should be looking at?
Yeah, I think a big chapter for a lot of people is realizing that you're not going to be replaced by AI. You're going to be replaced by someone else who is 10 times more productive, and then they're going to replace you using these tools. And we've been here in the past of, there was a time when, white collar work was done without computers, and then companies invested tens of millions of dollars to buy everyone computers, and hey, you had to learn that new skill, sink or swim. So we've truly been here before. I have different advice for business owners compared to, let's call them like freelancers and or desk workers. Should I dive into more of the freelancer side or desk worker side or business owner?
Let's go for the business owner. Yeah, I think what are some of the things the business owner needs to think of?
Perfect. And I'll qualify this is a lot of the clients I work with in this are small to medium business owners, so typically under 100 employees. The first thing to do is similar with any digital transformation, is to educate yourself and to lead by example. I won't talk too much about this here because I think that people can grasp this relatively quickly.
Listening to this podcast as an example, right? This is as people listen and they're learning, right? This is all, it's happening right now. It's happening in real time. So keep up, right? If you're interested in keeping up, you have to do some of the work.
Yes. And I think what a lot of people get stuck in is the novelty points of not using it as much systematically in their workflow. And the only way you're going to be using it systematically in your workflow, or I shouldn't say the only way, but the most likely way is really scheduling in focus time. I can't tell you how many people I've spoken with who's like, oh yeah, they know they hear I'm an AI expert, or they know I'm an AI expert. It's like, yeah, I really gotta like schedule that Friday afternoon, and like I can't tell you how many times I've heard that, that old Friday afternoon that's still yet to be scheduled, to really carve out, let's say 3 hours to dive into this material. And when you're diving in, I recommend that people do get their hands dirty, but they also look at examples. I think everyone will have their own mixture of learning here, but for most folks, I think there should be like a 50-50 balance. Study what other people are doing, find examples you like to copy, and then 50% just get your hands dirty and see what you can create. In that time, I would also recommend to go beyond ChatGPT. So first of all, if you're using the paid version, there are great plugins out there that you can be experimenting with. And I also recommend that people check out something called the Playground. The Playground, if you go to I believe it's OpenAI/platform, but you can find, if you were typing up ChatGPT Playground, you'll get into the user interface that shows the back end of these tools, basically how the API works. And the reason why that is so cool is if you spend a little bit of time learning that, you can then, with no-code platforms like Zapier or Make.com, you can then create automations with these technologies, which can get really crazy very fast, because all of a sudden, if you get your inputs and outputs right, you can add on AI directly into your business systems without humans having to be a bottleneck in those processes. Another thing I recommend people do is they check out various Chrome extensions. You got to be careful with these, because there can definitely be a lot of scams, or else things that can steal your data. But I still recommend that people at least expand their purview beyond just ChatGPT, because there are a lot of interesting tools out there that are running off of it, but can help you out. Once you have dived into it yourself as a business owner and you're leading by example, it becomes a matter of finding out where in your business to then add it in. Typically, most people, or most business owners, I believe, will find the lowest hanging fruit to be in one of 5 areas, which are prospecting and sales. And this is where they might want to be adding in AI automations or AI tools in how they're dealing with prospects and how they're moving people through their funnel, creating maybe customized templates. There's a lot of applications there. The second area after sales and marketing is to be onboarding clients. Third is in customer support. So you can be thinking of these 3 as like in that funnel, with the 4th and 5th ways to add AI being adding employee training or employee manuals as AI. And then number 5 is data transformation, which is typically data entry. But if you need to transform data or enrich data, those are 5 areas that you can add it in. If you don't know where to get started, I recommend all business owners to create a diagram of their business and to track their you should be obviously tracking your numbers very effectively, and should see where in your business flow, in your workflows, do more errors occur than you would like them to occur, but also which areas have clean inputs and outputs. Because I think of all problems as inputs and outputs problems. The problem, of course, is that sometimes the inputs are unclear. I'm sure you as a lawyer, sometimes the advice you're giving is far more than just read this contract. You have to understand the context. You have to be speaking with the client. So it can be very, very challenging to hand these over to machines. But if there's an area where the inputs and outputs are clear, then AI can really be added in quite effectively. So those are the methodologies I give to people and coach people through when they're thinking about how to add AI into their business.
Yeah, that's really helpful, and it's a good way to think. I mean, that's good advice for just thinking of your business in general, right? To look at road mapping, and then employing AI among other solutions to the ways of improving the flow. You mentioned ChatGPT and the tools there. What if, from a mobile perspective, people are doing things on their mobile devices? What tools are you seeing that are being used effectively there?
To be honest, most of my interactions with these applications is through the desktop. I've always kind of been resistant to doing too many things on my phone. I think it's a little bit of a rebellion against social media. Not too many examples jump to mind, to be honest. That's a great question, though, but it's hard for me to differentiate them. I haven't given much thought to that taxonomy.
Yeah, interesting, and fair enough, right? I can appreciate you're probably more productive. I just see people trying to use their mobile devices as well, and I'm contemplating ways or the most effective ways they can, because it's an extension. You know, if you're with your device at all times, then making sure that you're also able to leverage the power of the technology at all times. I think it's another way, right? It's another way that it will come. We spoke generally for the business owners. What the business owners can be doing, and you mentioned as well tools for the individual, right? So the freelancer. What are some specifics for the freelancers?
For the freelancers, I would say it's simpler, or I should better say it's more focused on carving out that specialized time to be mastering these tools for yourself. And depending on your work, there's always new tools that are coming out there. Actually, I think just in a few months ago, OpenAI in the non-paid version has just released. I believe they call them custom instructions, but I think it's better thought of as AI personas. So even the free version now, you can add custom instructions. And so one thing, actually, just this week, I've had my team create a shared database of all of the custom, well, we call them personas, but all the personas that we might want to use AI with. So from copywriting to social media marketing to content creation to actually not just copywriting, but specifically outreach copywriting and then inbound handling. So all of these are different personas that have different requirements and trainings, and then that's creates a shared knowledge base our company can leverage. I recommend people to be diving into tools like that and be seeing where they can add value to their clients or their organization.
Same way to make sure we're at the leading edge here, understanding how things are working, right? And that shared knowledge will only amplify what individuals are doing as they learn or they continue to learn with the technology here. You mentioned your team. How's your team been assembled? Is it mostly in the Philippines, or are you working for people right across or right around the world?
We work with people remotely from around the world, but most of our team operations are based here in the Philippines, and we try to hire as much as we can directly here in Cebu with a local community as well. But there's different rings to it.
The world's just getting smaller and smaller, isn't it? I mean, as we have this chat here and we talk of AI, it's fascinating to watch, and as it continues to develop. How do you think it'll impact your own business and the growth of your own business in the future?
I personally have been, I think I'm in a little bit of a unique place because I've been obsessed with AI for about, at least professionally, for about 6 years. The reason why I wanted to start a software company and have built this this branch of our business has been, actually was a quote from the founder of Valve. He said that coding was nothing more than teaching the dumbest thing in the world how to be smart. So a computer is the dumbest thing that exists because it's literally just ones and zeros. So a 1 is I exist, a 0 is I don't exist. And then you add logic gates and other things. So it's more complicated than that. But on a fundamental level, it is the dumbest thing you can imagine. It's just binary. And if you can bootstrap intelligence from that, I don't think there's anything in town that could be more exciting than that. And so the spear tip of that, or the top of that iceberg is definitely this game of AI. And so very much so, I'm all in and have been in a while for a while, and to see in the last about 11 months now, it really blowing up is tremendous.
It's tremendous, right? It's here. I think it's now achieved that critical mass. We all realize, right? So you've been at it for 6 years. You've been a bit early to the party, which is great. Obviously, that you have been able to get there. But I think everyone else is now arriving, right? And they're saying, yeah, there's really something to this. If someone's interested in learning more or chatting with you further, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, the best way to get in touch with me is just to find me on LinkedIn. You can search Garik Tate, and then just connect with me there. Say that you saw me on the Millionaires podcast, and I'll be sure to connect. And if you need help with IT consulting or with adding AI into your business, definitely reach out to me. You can also check out my website or my company's website, Vahalla.team. Company specializes in hiring teams of developers and also product managers and designers and pretty much anything you need to assemble a development team. And that's where you can find us.
Garik, that's great stuff. And thanks for joining us here today. Really appreciate having you on the show. I like to end the episodes with a conversation of what things are going to look like in a couple of years' time, right? So as we mentioned, 2023, if we're talking 2025, what's happening in the next couple of years? If we revisit the show in 2 years' time, what's happened? What are important things to focus on right now to be where you want to be in 2025?
Place where I want to be, and this is more focused on the subjective, not the big civilizational questions.
Yes.
All right. I think that in 2025, the major milestones I'll be wanting to hit are, I suspect, writing a book, and probably just doing a few more podcasts like this excellent one. I think it's a really good path that I'm on, and so I really feel like I'm in this for the long haul, and it's going to be doing a bit of a similar thing for the next probably 7 years, just doing it with more and more interesting business partners and more interesting ventures. But yeah, I think this is what it's all in for.
That's great, Garik. And it's interesting, I cite 2 years, you say 7, because for some reason I think 2030 is going to be a big year. There's so many things that people are driving towards for 2030, it seems, and clearly you're pegging that as a date for you as well. When you talk of writing this book, I imagine you're going to employ AI to do that as well, aren't you?
A lot of people, I think it could definitely be useful for it. I think that there is something interesting though about how the human brain triggers and gives reciprocity around attention. When AI was novel, every YouTube channel out there made their one video like, this video is written by AI, right? It was novel still. It was still interesting enough that you would want to pay attention. Now, if you learn something was made by AI, you're far less forgiving to it because it's wasting your time. And it didn't waste a creator's time. So if it did not waste a creator's time, but now it's wasting your time, like there's no reciprocity, and you get quite upset quite fast, or at least I can speak for myself. And so I think that while AI is and can be a tool, ultimately you have to take a lot of responsibility for making sure the output is delivering the actual value that you want to deliver. So I won't say that I'm not thinking about using it, but gotta take I think even a higher level of responsibility if you do use it to make sure you're not wasting people's time.
That's just it, right? We seem to at least at this point, we value it less if we understand it's been produced by AI, right? I mean, a response on ChatGPT, I mean, take it for what it is, right? It's been something that's been generated in a matter of seconds, and there's certainly what do I call that, thinking? There's certainly an output,
Yeah,
but it doesn't have the benefit of the human life energy inputted, right? And I certainly know from talking to others, I mean, we need to obviously use the human input as well to, among other things, check for hallucinations or make sure that what's been generated is actually accurate. But then there's also like a quantitative or qualitative aspect to it as well. As an aside, how do we know, or what tools can we be using right now to determine whether or not something has been simply generated by AI?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think something that's really revelatory in that question is coming back to that quote we had said before about math is to physics as AI is to biology. And so there are in biology, we do find certain arms races where evolution takes things in a very strange direction because two species were competing with each other, and you get these weird feedback loops. I think that we're going to find similar areas where the I'll say it, the game or the board is complex enough where there's never going to become an equilibrium, where there will constantly be a back and forth of creating AIs that detect other AIs, and then those AIs are then used to then train those AIs, get better at faking, and there's going to become these weird arm races. I do, funnily enough, OpenAI has quietly rescinded their, I don't know what you want to call it, pledge or intention to create an AI detector for text. Because in my, I think anybody who's looking at this on a first principles level like has to know that's doomed, because text is a simple enough board game that it will hit an equilibrium state. And that equilibrium state is not going to be in favor of the detector, because the detector can be fed into the faker. So the faker is going to win that war. Will video go down a similar path? You'd think intrinsically probably yes, but I think it's going to be harder than a lot of people think, for similar reason why blue collar work is so hard to replace, because reality is more complex than we give it credit for, and video theoretically is capturing at least a slice of that. So I think it's a really interesting question, and one that's going to differ from field to field, but that's the first principles approach that I urge people to think about with that question when they're wrestling with it.
Great answer to a great question. And you mentioned reality as well. Again, subject for another whole other podcast. Garik, we really appreciate having you on here today. Again, anyone listening interested in exploring these subject matters further, please do reach out to Garik. We'll have all his contacts and everything in the show notes as well. And I look forward to the next chance we get to collaborate, whether it be next week, 2025 or 2030 or 2030. Thanks again, Garik. We'll see you next time on The Millionaire's Lawyer.
Thank you, JP.